searching history for buried classics. This is Lost Treasures of Gaming.
Welcome back to another awesome episode of Lost Treasures of Gaming. I am your host, Sean Evans, otherwise known as Zion Tane.
And I'm your other host, Syd Bolton, your gaming archaeologist, otherwise known online as Dirk the Daring.
Hello, Dirk the Daring. We have an awesome guest today, don't we?
We do. You know, there's so many great games from my childhood, and this one that we're going to talk about tonight definitely stands out as one of my all-time favorites.
I remember playing this game for hours on my Commodore 64, and of course that game we're talking about is Miner 2049er. And we're going to talk about it with the creator of this game, Bill Hogue. The thing about this game, Syd, when I go back and look at it again, it really is a combination of some of the most popular arcade games of the day.
It really is, and it managed to squeeze a lot of gameplay, a lot of levels into a small space, as we'll find out during the interview. It's very interesting from a technical standpoint. A lot of games today, you don't have to worry about the technical side of things so much, but back in the day, boy, the technical constraints of the systems really dictated a lot of what games could and couldn't include.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the game we're going to talk about, again, Miner 2049er, with the creator, Bill Hogue. Welcome, Bill, to Lost Treasures of Gaming. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Miner 2049er is one of, I have so many memories of this game playing on the Commodore 64 when I was growing up. So it's an absolute pleasure to be able to talk with you today about this game.
Yeah, me too.
It's great that there's so many fans of that still playing it today.
There are, and I still remember those absolutely precise movements with the joystick and trying not to fall down the slide. I still have nightmares about that, Bill, I gotta tell you.
Well, we didn't want to make it too easy.
No, that's true.
Bill, can you give us a bit of history, I guess go back, if you can remember, back this far, to when you created this game, when you kind of sat down and said, this is the game I want to make. What was the inspiration behind this game? What made you want to to create Miner 2049er?
Well, if you look at some of our games from the big 5 software games days that we did on TRS-80, they were all based upon other games. So for Miner, we really wanted it to be something totally different that wasn't in an arcade already. So we kind of tried to combine little bits of Donkey Kong and Pac-Man and different games to make it something truly different. And it was also my first game on Atari, coming from the TRS-80 world. So I tried to make every use of color and sound that I never had before.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that you kind of took pieces of Donkey Kong, because looking back, of course, at the screenshots now and playing it again so many years later, I'm like, it's got a lot of elements from the arcade games of the day. And so that's kind of what you were going for, is you kind of wanted to merge the different popular games and create a more unique one?
Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, Jeff and I, we used to go to an arcade, I think it was out in Riverside, California, that had all the coolest games of the day. And we loved playing all those games, so we lost many a quarter on those machines.
You built this game in a day when basically there were what did you say in Lost Treasures, Syd? There was maybe 5 game screens total, whereas you created 10 on this one. Is that right?
A lot of games like Donkey Kong only had the 4 screens, and other games at the time were definitely not, usually didn't have as many levels as this game had.
Well, we were trying to pack all that data into the ROM space. I mean, even on Bonnie Bob Strikes Back, that 16K wasn't enough, and I tried to go to a 40K. So I used every available bit and byte I could get my hands on.
And one thing I noticed as well, Bill, is that I think you mentioned the color and the sound on the Atari, and I think it's worth noting that you really push the limits of the machines, I think, for the day, with color especially. And I think, noting the companies that you worked for after this, I guess maybe color seems to have been something that's very important to you, because you really sort of did things on the Atari and took advantage of the color palette that was there and did things that, not a lot of people were doing at that time, but maybe did after they could see what was possible. So I think you kind of led, to me anyways, when I look back at the games, you kind of led the way in terms of the use of color in that game.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I had never had color before, like I said, so it was like a new toy to me. And I wanted to just cram as much in as possible. I almost think I overdid it a little bit, especially on that one, the high score screen, where you've got all the fives rotating around the outside of the screen. It was a lot of work to fight the Atari to get all those colors on one screen.
Now,
Go ahead.
the character of Bounty Bob, and I didn't know this, of course, growing up, but he is apparently an RCMP officer. Is that right?
He's a Canadian RCMP, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we kind of came up with that backstory after the fact, but yeah, we did make that up.
There's a lot about the story. I mean, he's trying to find Yukon. Was it Yukon?
Yukon Johan, yeah.
Yukon Johan. I mean, it's a lot of the elements in this seem Canadian.
I have no idea why that is.
Well,
I'd maybe been to Canada for a day or two at that point.
So this is just coincidence that you named a lot of the stuff after Canadian stuff.
Well, he knew that he was going to be on our podcast, Sean, years later.
30 years later.
His crystal ball, he knew that we were in Canada and that we were going to ask him these Canadian questions, eh? One question I had, not necessarily related to the game itself, but more so, one of the things I found fascinating about it is that you obviously spent a lot of money advertising the game, because I remember, looking in, copies of Compute magazine and other magazines where there was ads for it with great artwork, by the way, which of course is sort of a lost art these days, where the painted covers and things like that are long gone. But what was it your decision, or how did it work in terms of porting the game? Because obviously you developed it initially on the Atari 8-bit machine, and then I think it was available on everything that could possibly run anything close to the game, from what I remember, like so many platforms. What was obviously, probably money was the motivating factor, but was it your decision to do that? And how did you manage all those ports, and did you have a team working for you to do all that?
Well, all of that credit goes to Mr. Barry Friedman from the International Computer Group. I had met him midway through the TRS-80 years, where he was getting different artists to do new artwork that when we came out with re-releases of the TRS-80 games with new, full-color artwork. And then when Miner came out, he was the one that was shopping it all around to all these different companies. So all the credit really goes to him.
Okay, so basically he was like, you've got to get this out on other things, and sort of led that charge. That's interesting, because it's one of those things where, of course, it's much different today, because you were actually the developer and the publisher and everything like that, and you had a lot of roles in addition to just, writing the game, right? So.
Oh, exactly, yeah. When you look at games today, the credits go on and on and on.
Oh, yeah.
And
they really do.
One of the things you had, obviously early success in video games, and you were quite young at the time, and I understand that you got the opportunity to go on Good Morning America. And what was that like, and how old were you when you did that?
I was 20, because I remember David Hartman going, and Bill Hogue is 20. The story for that is they wanted us to bring a computer to show some of the game stuff. So as soon as Jeff and I landed at the airport there in New York, they got on the phone and said, this is what we want to see. And it's like, whoa, you didn't tell me any of that before I, left L.A. So I had to take the limo that they picked me up in. I had to ask the limo to go to a local Radio Shack so I could buy some software to kind of phony up what they wanted to see. So if you ever watch that, little Good Morning America segment there, I'm like popping through screens where I'm like showing an editor and then I pop over to the game. All of that was written the night before in the hotel room.
Oh.
Is that on YouTube somewhere?
It might be. I used to have it on our website, but I think it's busted. I got to fix that link.
Yeah, I was actually on your site today, the Big Five software, which, to be honest, hasn't been updated in 8 years. But the emulator for 2049 doesn't work in Windows 10.
I don't think it's worked for a while. I've gotten several emails from people
that's too bad.
saying it's busted.
Oh, yeah, well, it's probably just because it's an earlier version of DirectX, I think.
Yeah,
right?
probably.
Exactly.
That's why. But
also trying to play that game on a 1080p monitor. It's like this little thumbnail in the middle of the screen.
Well, I actually did. Well, you could expand it, and I did play when you first wrote that. I do remember playing it, and it was quite good because it was nice to be able to have the windowed environment, but you could also make it bigger and everything. So I was at the time, and I don't remember what version of Windows I used, but I do remember several years ago, probably when I did an interview with you a while ago, just a written interview, and I did check it out and it did work. So you can. There's other ways of playing the game, of course. I think it was pretty neat that you even bothered to do something like that because most people that have these things, they just leave it to regular computer emulators to run it and whatnot. So it was nice that you actually took the time to do something like this that was special. So, but it'll be even better if you can fix it.
Yeah, it was a fun little project. I had to download all the Atari documentation all over again because I had tossed it all out many years ago, so I didn't remember any of it. So I had to download the opcodes for the 6502 and all the timing and all of that stuff to build that emulator.
How long did it take you to actually create the game from start to finish? Do you remember?
I honestly don't remember now.
Nowadays, of course, games take years to develop, but would you say it was like a couple of months, couple of weeks, or was it longer than that?
I don't think it was more than 4 to 6 months, somewhere in there.
Okay. I have got so many memories of that game. I love it. According to the internet, though, you originally were going to create it on the Trash 80 model computer, but it was discontinued.
We had another programmer that was doing a TRS-80 version of it, but that was never going to be the original version. That's not true.
Oh, okay.
He did come up with a version, but we just decided not to release it just because the TRS-80 just didn't compare, to the full color Atari version.
Oh yeah, I can imagine for sure. Yeah.
Now, I just wanted to ask, how did piracy affect you back then? Like, did you still sell lots of copies? Was there a lot of piracy going on that you knew about? Like, how did that work for you in terms of worrying about? Like, I know that, for example, on the TI-99 version, you guys actually did. It wasn't a standard cartridge. It was actually a cartridge that went in the expansion bus, which was probably made it much more difficult to copy. And, of course, there was limited people that could even copy cartridges. But do you remember, was it a constant battle? Was it something that was always on your mind? And how did that affect you in terms of, developing other titles?
Well, that was the reason that we went to cartridge to begin with, just because of the piracy from the TRS-80 cassettes and discs. And I wanted to do the cartridge to kind of prevent most of that. And if you look forward to Bounty Bob Strikes Back, where I did the 40K bank selected cartridge, that was really difficult for somebody to bust.
Right. So,
if somebody was determined to bust the 16K cartridge for minor, they could probably do it if they really knew what they were doing. But, that stopped most piracy coming out with it on cartridge.
So, is it true that you were going to, the sequel wasn't originally Bounty Bob Strikes Back?
That's true. We were coming out with something called Scraper Caper, and we went through various iterations of what that was going to be. We had this one game. I don't know if you've ever played Atari's Crystal Castles, but it was something like that, where you were bouncing around on like a three-dimensional playfield.
Sort of an isometric view.
Yes,
kind of thing,
exactly.
Yeah.
Or something like Qbert, some combination of that. And we just didn't like where that was going. And then I did this other version where Bonnie Bob was now a fireman, and you were in some sort of building that was burning, and you had to go up, the elevator to rescue people. And it was going to be kind of a scrolling game. And again, it just wasn't coming out the way I wanted it to be, and people had, said so many great things about Miner. I was trying to top myself, and I think Curtis Michaliski and I finally decided, why don't we just go back and do a second version of Miner, one that will really blow past Miner 2049er. So that's why we did Bonnie Bob Strikes Back.
So originally you were trying to create not necessarily a sequel, but another game with this character.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you ended up doing a direct sequel with more levels this time. Yeah,
I think Bonnie Bob had 25 levels plus the ending screen.
That's awesome. Now, what would you? Now, I understand Bonnie Bob Strikes Back didn't have the wasn't as successful as Miner 2049er. Do you know do you have any ideas why that might have been? Like, what was it? If it was pretty much a similar gameplay, more levels, do you have any idea what happened there? Why it might not have caught on as much?
That was really toward the end of our company, as we were starting to wind down, although I didn't know it at the time. And I think the whole home game market was kind of dying off. And that we just weren't as successful in getting people to do a version for all these other platforms.
Oh, okay. Because, like Syd said earlier, I honestly didn't even know there was a sequel. That wasn't something I knew back then, because I was just, playing the original, and I had no idea there was a sequel out there. Now,
you think it was because the first game was so successful and that you wanted to get something that was, as successful or better, right? And so maybe that's why because it took quite a while, right? Because Bounty Bob didn't come out until 3 years later, I think. Is that right? Roughly?
I don't remember the time frame, but it took us a lot of time to come out with that sequel. But by then, Bounty Bob was written on a compiling system that I had built myself. So in that time frame, I built this editing and compiling system that allowed multiple programmers at Big Five to do Atari games. Not that we ever released any of them, but I was spending a lot of my time trying to create a platform for that.
So you're basically creating a game engine before such a thing really existed.
Yeah, we were using the, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's called the TRS-80 Model 16.
Yeah, we have one at the museum.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this huge screen with I think it had 8-inch floppy disks. And it was a 68,000 processor, so it was really a cross-assembler that I wrote for that. So it would compile or assemble, I should say, pretty fast, and we'd download the code to the Atari through a serial port. So the development was greatly, sped up. We didn't have to be trying to fit everything into memory on the Atari.
In 2007, there was a re-release of the game on the mobile market. Did you have any part in doing that?
You're talking about with Magmic?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, they licensed that from me.
Okay. And they created like a new version as well as including the original version in there. Like they modernized it.
Yeah, they did a great job with that.
So other than licensing from you, were you involved at all in that creation?
Just them showing me the version before they released it to make sure I liked it. And, I did because they did a great job on it.
Awesome. I believe, unfortunately, it's no longer on iOS.
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
I think it's
okay.
Yeah, I downloaded it yesterday, actually.
Okay, great. Because I had thought I had read somewhere that it had been removed. That's good. So it's
That's
still on
just
iOS.
those app people, they're just crazy sometimes. They don't know what they're doing over there.
So, Bill, what keeps you busy now? What are you working on these days? Have you ever thought of going back to Miner 2049er and doing something new with it?
No, not really. I did spend some time earlier in the year, and I scanned all my old photographs, and I imported a lot of old VHS videotapes from that time, because I do want to update that website sometime with some new multimedia, because I think there's a lot more stuff I have that people would be interested in seeing.
So you're still with Big Five Software then?
Oh, God, no.
No?
I wouldn't
Okay.
say I'm with Big Five. I mean, no, I have a
He was Big
full-time
Five.
job. Yes.
Yeah, I know you are, yeah. I mean, that's your, Big Five is your personal site?
That is my site.
Yeah.
Exactly, yes.
So what keeps you busy today? Are you still in game development?
Oh, God, no. I just started a new job at Walt Disney Imagineering.
Oh, exciting.
Yes, I've been trying to get in there for a number of years, and it's finally happened. So,
Can you talk about what you do there?
not really, because I've been told to keep my mouth shut.
That's fair.
And I'm a low-level employee because I've just started there, so I'm going to follow their rules.
No, that's perfectly fine. That's exciting though.
But my title is Ride Control Systems Specialist, so it is something to do with rides.
Oh, excellent. Syd, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
Well, I was just going to say I found it interesting that one of your your career, you've had a few different places that you worked, but I did find it interesting that you worked at Technicolor. Do you think your time with the Atari led to that job in any way? Do you think that had anything to do with it, or was it just completely coincidental?
Well, I started at Technicolor because one of the guys that worked for me, Jeff Zinn, we released his game that was called Stellar Escort on TRS-80. He'd actually written that by himself and approached me about releasing it. And he was one of the people we brought on payroll later to try to develop more games. So he had actually started at Technicolor first, and then he got me hired on over there. But I spent more than 20 years at Technicolor working on the film printing equipment there. I mean, film is almost completely gone now, but during the time I was there, if you saw a movie, it was likely printed on a piece of equipment that I did the code for.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, we had some pretty big film printing machines there. I mean, even in almost around 1997, we built this new machine that was 2 stories tall, and it was a throwback to the old Technicolor time. It's called die transfer, and that machine had over 240 motors on it, all controlled by my software.
Wow.
So it was pretty spectacular.
That's like a lost level of Miner somewhere in there, I would imagine. You had that, coded in your head. But I'll tell you, we at the Computer Museum, we have open houses one Saturday per month where people are allowed to come out to our building and try the old computers. And we have, of course, we have Commodore 64 and we have Atari 8-bit computers. We have both an 800 set up, and we even have a little bit of a rarer one. We have a 1200 XL out there, which you don't see too often. And so a lot of times when I'm trying to decide what I want to run on the machines, I often pick Miner, probably more so than I would other titles, just because I find it such a good representation of a classic computer game. It shows off what the hardware can do, and it's interesting because it certainly wasn't, and even the Commodore 64 version, which is the one that I actually played when I was a younger man, it certainly didn't push the machine completely to its limits. There were games later that, had parallax scrolling and all this other kind of stuff, but it still holds up well today, and I think that's a testament to the quality of what you did, and I think that's a good benchmark, because there's tons and tons and tons of games out there that a lot of us played when we were younger on those machines, but for a game like yours to stand the test of time just goes to show what a great job you did at the time, and I think probably a lot of that has to do with the fact that it was just so well done, and the quality was so well done, and it's very obvious that you spent a lot of time working on it, and that you cared about every little nuance, because it shines through even today. And so, know that has paid off in the sense of, so many years later, over 30 years later, it's still a great game to play. And that's why we're featuring it here today, and why we talk about it as a lost treasure, because those that haven't tried it, because we've got a new generation of gamers, we're trying to educate as to what was good when we were kids and what really makes a good game, and yours had all the elements of what makes a good game. So congratulations on that, and thank you for creating a game that I spent many, many hours with, and probably missed quite a bit of school because of, by the way. So you might have caused that trouble for a lot of people. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I've gotten lots of emails from people that tell me they went into computing because of some of my software.
Oh, that's awesome. Wow.
Yeah,
that must mean the most. Those are the best kind of emails to get.
Yes.
So Bill, how can people follow you on Twitter and kind of keep up with what you're doing, or contact you there?
Oh, I don't do too much Twitter.
You don't do the Twitters?
No. Do people really want to follow me? I don't think so.
I think if they go to Big Five Software, that'll encourage you to do with the website. And you know what? I'll even offer, if you need some assistance in doing that, you probably don't. I mean, I know you know how to do the coding and everything, but if you need some motivation, or you need maybe some help in doing the update, I offer my assistance to you where I can as well.
I appreciate that.
But maybe that's the place for people to go, big5software.com, to check out. And that way, if we tell them now, that'll encourage him to update it, Sean.
So oh no, there goes all my free time.
Uh-oh. Well, it's only been 8 years, Syd. Come on, give him some time.
We'll give you another year or so. Let's for the 10th anniversary, let's have some changes made.
Oh, great! How's that? Bill, thank you again for being on Lost Treasures of Gaming. It has been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Another great interview, and folks, we're going to be quite honest. The interview you just heard is about half of the time we spoke with Bill.
What a great guy. Lots of great stories. Just a cool guy. Just the kind of guy that you want to hang out with and have a beer with him. He's just awesome guy for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe you made plans to do just a thing like that next time you're down in California.
Yep, I got the plans already set up for sure. I'm actually setting up the travel plans right now as we speak.
Awesome. Oh, great interview with Bill Hogue. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Lost Treasures of Gaming. Of course, don't forget every Friday night to go visit twitch.tv/GH101. And Fred over there at Gaming History 101, he's going to stream this very game that we talk about every week, as long as he's able to. Of course, so hopefully he'll be doing Miner 2049er this coming Friday. So check that out every Friday night, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, you can follow the show on Twitter. We are at Lost Treasures OG, and if you'd like to follow me, I am Zion Tane everywhere.
And I'm wondering how far along he's going to get in that game, what level he's going to get to. You can follow me on Twitter at Syd Bolton. That's Syd with a Y. And if you want to send us an email, maybe give us some feedback or give us some suggestions about what kind of games or people you'd like to see on an upcoming episode, you can do so by sending us an email to losttreasuresofgaming@gmail.com. And if you want to find out a little bit more about what we talked about, or find links, for example, to the Big Five Software website, you can visit our show notes, of course, at the website omgnexus.com.
Awesome. Of course, if you want to get a preview of what next week's show might be sure to listen to the next episode of the OMG Hour, which can be found at omgnexus.com as well. Thanks, everybody, for listening to Lost Treasures of Gaming. We'll talk to you again next week.
See you soon.
This has been an OMGNexus.com production.